There have been several iterations: colored, Negro, black, Afro-American. We have to define ourselves as a group. We have to hyphenize ourselves. The African-American one is just horrible. We're inconsistent with it. For example, if somebody comes from Morocco or from Libya, we don't call them an African-American. We're only talking about people from sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, fine. Charlize Theron is South African. No, because she's white, but she's from Africa. Yeah, but her ancestors are not from there. 3, 4, 5 generations of them are. No, African-American, that's a term that we use for individuals of African descent who survived slavery. Okay, then Obama was not our first African-American president because his father was a Kenyan and they were not a product of slavery. It just breaks down. It just doesn't work.
Recently, Black Americans have been having a conversation concerning how we should define ourselves. Officially, the United States recognizes Black Americans under the term African Americans. Now, this is a bit of a misnomer, as most Black Americans who have been here in America for generations have never been to Africa. At the same time, Africans, people who were born in Africa and immigrated to America, such as Elon Musk, can technically classify themselves as African Americans, despite the fact that they are white. So this is a very confusing term, African Americans. For decades now, Black Americans have called themselves, and America has recognized the term African Americans. But as of late, as the conversation behind reparations continues to grow, this term is becoming hotly debated. We have people like Elon Musk, as mentioned earlier, as well as former President Barack Obama, whose father was a Kenyan man, his mother was a white woman, and has no ties to the descendants of slavery. But he also would be classified as an African American. Not to mention Charlize Theron, also coming from South Africa. Although she's a white woman, she lives in America and has the right to call herself an African American. This issue is further complicated by the fact that the Africans, or the Black folks coming from Africa and coming from the Caribbean voluntarily, sometimes have different political views and different cultural perspectives that are sometimes diametrically opposed to that of the Black Americans who were here since the founding of this country, who helped build this country, and who remain in their homeland to this day. Now, this article is coming from the Wall Street Journal. It's highlighting the fact that even the U.S. Census Bureau is now considering making a separate designation for the foundational Black Americans, or the Black Americans who have been here since the time of slavery. Check this out. The headline reads, U.S. considers asking Black Americans on census if they are slave descendants. Change would help quantify eligibility for reparations should the government agree to pay them. The fact that this article is coming out, the fact that the U.S. Census Bureau is considering making a separate designation for the descendants of slaves, shows the progress of this reparations movement. Let's get deeper into this article. The idea of adding more detailed categories to the census has been gaining currency among some Black Americans who say society too often conflates their experiences with those of Black immigrants, who only started moving to the U.S. in meaningful numbers in the past few decades. Roughly 1 in 5 Black people in the U.S. are immigrants, or their children, according to an analysis by the nonpartisan Pew Research Center. Supporters of the change say one reason they are pushing it is to quantify who would be eligible to receive reparations for slavery should the government ever agree to pay them. An effort to make such payments has stalled in Congress, though local efforts have gained some steam. In San Francisco, for example, the city's Board of Supervisors is debating a proposal to award eligible Black residents up to $5 million per person in restitution. One of a menu of preliminary recommendations that include free homes, guaranteed incomes, and debt and tax relief. Yes, it's true, so far the federal government has stalled in Congress considering this reparations movement, but it has become public debate. It has reached the debate stage in presidential elections thanks to Marianne Williamson, and certain cities such as San Francisco, even Washington, D.C., have put this topic up to legislative votes. This topic is not going away. So figuring out who is qualified and for how much would they be qualified is going to be very relevant information. All right, so now that you have some context, some background information, I'll tell you my personal opinion on the topic. But first, if you've made it this far in the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. I appreciate you rocking with me so far. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you can come back for more videos on interesting topics like these. All right, with that being out the way, let me tell you what I think personally. Personally, I think that although foundational Black Americans are descendants of slaves are deserving of reparations, I think this topic will likely divide and ultimately destroy the Democratic Party. Now, I think this is actually a good thing because the Democratic Party has, in my opinion, already turned its back on democracy. My next video, I'm going to be covering this topic, so you all be sure to check this out. But just in the primaries alone, where Hillary Clinton bought the DNC, rigging it against Bernie Sanders, that alone, not to mention the fact that now under President Joe Biden leadership, the Democratic Party is deciding not to hold primary debates. The Democratic is actively undermining democracy. And I think that it's time that Black people, Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, whatever you want to call us, we start to hold their feet to the fire, as we are the ones who are primarily propping up this party. Ultimately, I think that reparations, the topic of reparations, will serve as a litmus test to see who supports the Black Americans getting substantial or tangible benefits for our votes. The Black Americans have contributed so much over the centuries, over the generations to America, and very little has been received in return. So I think the reparations topic should continue to be pushed as a litmus test. And if the Democratic Party fails to support Black Americans, then Black Americans should fail to support the Democratic Party. But hey, that's just my take on it. You tell me what you think. Leave it in the comments section. Once again, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Peace.
Do you think, though, that what we're learning from Donna Brazil's book suggests that the campaign, that what the Democratic National Committee did, meant this election was rigged?
Yeah, I think it was.
It's a pretty powerful charge.
So you made it all the way to the end of the video, but you haven't hit the like button yet. Come on now. You're cheating me, you're cheating yourself. Go ahead, hit the like button. And while you're at it, you might as well smash the subscribe button so you can get notifications every time I drop a video. I make a video every day, a different topic, a different subject. They're all interesting, so you can check them all out by hitting the subscribe button and setting your notifications to all so you get an alert when I drop a video. There you go.